Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It is our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Yep. Check out the podcast below in the description as well.
So there's a conversation going on about Justin Fields as it relates to The Ohio State University, which is our Ohio State quarterback products destined to fail. Should we use the history of Ohio State quarterbacks as part of the puzzle when we evaluate whether or not Justin Fields is a good quarterback prospect in the NFL? Before we get into that, quick note, this video brought to you by DraftKings.
Yep. Download the app, promo code HAM. Also, American-Giant.com, 15% off. Get yourself some t-shirts, get yourself some zip-ups, get yourself some hoodies. Check it out.
I think the answer is promo code HAM. I think the answer is no. I don't think it matters what's happened at Ohio State before as it relates to Justin Fields. Let me tell you why. There hasn't been a prospect like Justin Fields playing quarterback at Ohio State ever. Dwayne Haskins was the 15th overall pick. That's the only one that's even close. Cardale Jones, he was a fourth rounder. No one was tricked by Cardale Jones's draft prospects, John. He was a fourth round pick. Terrell Pryor was a supplemental third. Troy Smith went in the fifth round. Craig Krenzel went in the fifth round. Steve Bellisari went in the sixth round.
Never heard of him.
Joe Germain, I know you've heard of Joe Germain.
Yeah.
Went in the fourth round. There has not been, Ohio State guys haven't succeeded, but whatever. They've been fifth round picks. No one expected them to. Justin Fields is a different type of prospect than the history of Ohio State quarterbacks says Ohio State produces. He is an outlier by Ohio State quarterback prospect standards.
Yeah, I think there are some similarities to Pryor in the sense of people. I mean, if you're into college recruiting, you don't forget. But I remember, I think I was at Fresno State. We were probably living together. Terrell Pryor was like a rock star recruit. Mm-hmm. He was like LeBron James level because remember Chip Kelly had like flown out a plane. It basically came down between Chip Kelly, Penn State, and Ohio State because I think he was a PA guy and Penn State desperately wanted him. Maybe I was living in Philly. It was my first year there. But I just remember Chip, Oregon thought they had a good chance. Remember people going to his basketball. He was just an elite five-star, can't-miss guy, like Justin Fields. But then when he played, you're like, Now, things got weird. The tattoo scandal, part of why he went to the supplemental draft. But he was never the NFL prospect as a player. I'm with you. I think part of what now there have been a lot of like top 10, quote-unquote, overall recruits that never mount up to shit. It's irrelevant where you start as a recruit, as a quarterback. I'd argue for most positions. I mean, it helps you get to big schools, but it does not determine where you're going to get drafted. Maybe it helps a little bit if you underachieve because that probably means you're physically a freak. Like Mario Edwards Jr. was like a top 10 recruit, went to Florida State, wasn't great, but he was a physical freak, so he still got drafted in the second round. But Justin Fields was the number 2 overall recruit. Then he played well. The thing that's, and me and you were bullshitting before we hopped on, I was blown away this week. I think for the first time. Not that I hadn't. Yeah, I don't think I had. Pulled up Justin Fields' stats at Ohio State. Just his flat stats for 2 years. And was like, so wait, his touchdown to interception ratio is almost 7-1. His completion percentage in the 2 years was 68% and then 70%. I just think we talk about this guy like he's like just this raw product. His stats are pretty mind-blowing. And my one buddy in the league that brought up this comparison, I think it's so right, is McNabb. And I just looked at McNabb's stats from Syracuse. It's crazy. He was a 4-year starter. Like, what player with playing basketball too? There's no chance he would have lasted 4 years, right, with just his physical attributes. McNabb for over 4 years was 58%. Can you imagine if Justin Fields was 58%? And again, this is just media. This is media talking. This is not – we haven't heard from one fucking team. So these conversations, like – everyone I talk to in the NFL likes Justin Fields, is intrigued by him. I think it's hard because right now
fans love him too.
All the speculation is coming from what media is perceiving to be what the NFL teams are thinking, and we don't know that at all. This whole thing, like if Mac Jones ends up going 20 and Justin Fields goes 2 or 3, what if Justin Fields goes 2, guy? We've talked about it. I don't think it's going to happen because I talked to someone who pretty knows Joe Douglas well. I mean, I know Phil Savage. I haven't bothered him during this time. I'm assuming they're taking Zach Wilson, but I wouldn't fall out of my chair if they took Justin Fields.
Yeah, if they took Justin Fields, it would feel like found money to the Niners because then Niner fans would think.
But I would rather have Justin Fields than Zach Wilson.
A lot
personally.
of people would. I'm just saying from the prospect of when the guy that you don't think you can have, then you can have. It feels like you've gotten something that you never had to begin with.
It would be an explosive story.
If we all thought the Jets were taking Justin Fields as a smokescreen and then they took Zach Wilson and the Niners got Fields, people would go like, oh, my God, we got the guy that should have been the second pick.
But do you agree with that right now? All the people that are mad about the conversation around Justin Fields are basing it on what they assume NFL teams are saying or thinking? Which is, as we've learned over the years, I don't know.
All the Orlovsky stuff, that's separate from what I'm just talking about Ohio State quarterbacks. To your point, here's the thing about that is we anonymous sources, there's a lot of reasons to hate anonymous sources, but anonymous sources say the things that people won't say on the record. So I don't think you can always just dismiss anonymous sources out of hand because that's the good stuff.
They're not allowed to put their name on it, Guy.
So, but yeah, that's a separate. I agree with you. I think a lot of the stuff is not the stuff that NFL teams are.
But this is one of those things that gets thrown in that you're talking about, the Ohio State quarterbacks. If you brought that up, if I was sitting in the meeting with like the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kevin Colbert, who we can never point out of the draft meeting, and we're just going position by position, and then we come to Justin Fields, and I go, Kevin, Ohio State quarterbacks always fail. Everyone in the room would be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Let me give you another counter argument to this, just to point out how stupid this conversation is. Which programs quarterbacks do you bet on? Who always would you be like, oh, NC State? I give them credit for Russ and Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett and Mike Glennon. You got to go with NC State.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we listed programs with great quarterbacks, they'd be on the list. Be like, Brady. You got to go Michigan, Harbaugh. The only one really, I think, that even has a case to be made right this second is probably Oklahoma. Like, they're the only one that within the last, 10 years, you'd say it's just consistently. A lot of these lists that you come up with, it's most quarterbacks fail. So
Bradford, Kyler, Baker.
Yeah, that'd be the list. We'll see what happens with Jalen Hurts.
Well, it's hard. It's not like some teams like DBU. Well, there are a ton of DBs, and you could rack up in 20 years a ton of DBs in the league. With quarterbacks, I'd argue if you hit two over 20 years, you're doing pretty well.
Well,
right?
Because first of all, if you've got a good one,
wouldn't Fresno State? I mean, Fresno State's got Derek Carr.
Oh, yeah.
Billy
Volek, Trent Dilfer, David
Tommy?
Carr, who?
Brandstater.
Brandstater. I mean,
it was drafted.
They went to the NFL.
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean, part of it is if you're a good college quarterback, you play for 2 or 3 years. If you're a good college corner, you play with 3 or 4 other good college corners. Like Washington can turn out 2 or 3 draft picks at cornerback every year. You can't do that at quarterback necessarily.
Well, imagine if we played the game of wide receivers from LSU, right? I mean, quarterback is so unique because I think we can go negative. Does Notre Dame have a great history? I bet if we dove in, it's probably not great beside Montana. But that doesn't mean that they're next. If they do land Joe Burrow in 3 years, doesn't mean that guy's going to fail because Deshaun Kaiser failed, right? Stupid. They have nothing to do. And these are the conversations in the draft room where could get you fired if the GM doesn't like you, but definitely would get you embarrassed because it's every single player. And I think if you approach this in life, every single human is a different story than the previous human, unless they're I don't know, brothers and they grew up together. They have nothing in common, especially if they didn't play together. What does a quarterback from now have in common? What would Justin Fields, he'd be like Dwayne Haskins, he was there before I ever got there. I never even met the guy.
Yeah, to me, the one parallel, right, if they all played for the same coach, ran the same offense, and that offense historically just covered up flaws that quarterbacks had, right? If Lincoln Riley keeps, Lincoln's going to start getting better. I mean, he gets credit for it now, right? If you're a pitching coach and you come from a program that a bunch of guys get Tommy John at a higher rate than other people get Tommy John, okay, that would be something I'd be interested in knowing. But again, Cardale Jones played for the same coach and the same offense. I mean, obviously he played for Ryan Day, but in the end, that's what I'm saying. Justin Fields played for Ryan Day. But Cardale Jones was a 4th-round pick. Cardale Jones was not the 5th overall pick. The people were like, oh my God, we were fooled by Cardale Jones. No, he went in the 4th round.
But also mistakes happen. If Joe Burrow transferred when he didn't beat out Dwayne Haskins, and I've heard Urban say this, we didn't expect it just kind of snowballed. We didn't expect Dwayne to be like a one and done guy, which he essentially was. And then Burrow left and had to start him. Obviously, it turns out you would take Burrow over Dwayne Haskins any day of the week. I bet there's a decent chance if me and you had been on the staff, just like recruiting coordinators, hey, middle cop, and we were just at practice, and Urban's like, God,
Dwayne sure talk a lot.
Yeah, but even if like, God, Dwayne looks he looks better than Burrow. I'd be like, yeah, he does, right? It's not inconceivable if that happened. Why? Because it's probably a shorter sample size. Cardale had just left. They're just putting it together. And now looking back, in like think how that's going to age in like 10 years if Burrow goes on to have a really good career. Like, God, that's one of the dumbest decisions ever. You went with Dwayne Haskins over Joe Burrow.
Well, but isn't Fields? Fields went to Georgia. Fields
and
didn't
Jake
go
Fromm.
to Ohio State first.
No.
Same thing.
They got lucky, right? He transferred.
Hell yeah, they did. Ohio State.
And they also didn't they get lucky in the sense that he was able to get the waiver because the race thing about the guy screaming at him, the baseball player. Wasn't that the thing?
Yeah.
Was that Justin
right.
Fields, the baseball player?
That's exactly
screaming
right.
at him?
I don't know if he was like, it was like from his own student section, I think was the deal.
Yeah, but there's a decent chance if that never happens, he would have had to sit out a season, right?
Yep.
Even though I read somewhere that like that a lot of people now get representation and argue every single angle and are getting it thrown out at a much higher clip than it used to be.
Yeah, there is a lot of waivers are going on.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like, oh, yeah, you had to sit
out
a year. It feels like sit out a year's over.
Well, there's some expectation this month or next month that there for this academic year that you're gonna be able to transfer and play right away with an extra year of eligibility.
I thought for a quick second you were gonna say they're not gonna throw that out the window forever though.
You open that door, you never know what's coming back. Right now, there's 1,000 basketball players in the portal. Like every team's got 2 or 3.
Don't 5 guys play?
5 guys play, but everybody wants the ball, John.
I don't know. I can't recommend it enough. Last Chance U is really grown. It's a fantastic series this year. Didn't your dad watch it?